These are the best controller, graphics, audio, and interface settings for Black Ops 7, and stay tuned to the end of this video as we're going to go over the best console settings as well if you're on PS5. And without further ado, let's start with the controller settings. So in previous Call of Duties, I was on 1.65. For whatever reason, the sensitivity feels a little bit different in Black Ops 7. On top of that, with the wall jumping, you're going to want to bump this setting up because you're going to have to try to track people that are wall jumping and whatnot. So 1.75 for me is a good place to end up at, but test this out for yourself and see what ends up working out best for you. You can start lower in the range of like 1.5 and slowly bump it up over time. But for me, as somebody who played on 1.65 and 1.65 the last Call of Duty, this Call of Duty, I'm liking 1.75 and 1.75. Anyways, I swap L1 R1 and L2 R2 because I play claw just with my hand cam here is a lot closer to have my middle finger there than on R2. Personal preference as well. Going down to controller vibration, I have that on, but with the intensity low. If you play on console, this is something that's important. If you play on PC, not quite as much. You can play on or off. It doesn't really matter. For dead zone inputs, these are huge for controller. Left stick min, you want this as low as possible. The left stick max, I have this on 70. They did nerf rotational aim assist, but it still kicks in at further ranges, so you want to make sure that your left stick max is lower, and this is so that you reach maximum strafing speed as fast as possible. For the right stick min, you want this as low as possible without getting stick drift. For me, on my SCUF controller, I just have this on 1. They had a TMR6, by the way, to SCUF, so check out my link if you're interested in that. Use code LUNCHTIME. On the right stick max, we have 95. Going over to the aiming tab, you want to go into advanced aiming settings and turn the ADS sensitivity transition timing on instant. By default, this is going to be gradual. You want to make sure this is at instant. That way, when you ADS, you're instantly getting the ADS sensitivity, not a gradual change in sensitivity as you're aiming down sight, which is kind of awkward. The aim response curve type, you want to make sure this is on dynamic. Some people mess with linear as well, but I prefer dynamic, and I don't mess with the custom sensitivity presume. I feel like 1.75 is perfectly fine, and I don't need any adjustments while ADS. So for target aim assist, obviously make sure that you have that on, then go into motion sensor function advanced settings, scroll down to FOV sensitivity scaling, turn this off. This is another one of those ones that I include, even though it's most likely placebo. It's just something that I've had off for a while and seems to feel fine. For movement, I turn sprint assist on. The remainder of them I turn off. I don't mess with tactical sprint assist because I don't run that perk anyways, but this is what the settings look like under my sprint assist. I also turn my corner slicing off. This is where you do that, just because corner slicing to me feels really weird. It feels clunky, and it doesn't actually change how your operator looks in game, so might as well turn that off in my opinion. For the wall jump assist, I also have this off. You want to make sure you don't have wall jump assist on, otherwise you'll accidentally be wall bouncing and stuff like that when you don't mean to. Scroll down to slide and dive behavior. There's only 2 settings that you want to go between. Either do slide only or do hybrid. Diving is not super important in Black Ops 7, so I definitely don't see a problem with going slide only. The important thing about using either one of these is that it just makes it easier to do that long slide to prone mechanic. You can't do that on the tap to slide or tap to dive because if you hold circle, you will dive, which makes it really awkward. So like I said, use slide only if you're not interested in dolphin diving, or if you still want to dolphin dive, learn how to play hybrid. Scrolling down, I have automatic airborne mantle off. There's a couple different wall jump spots in the map where it will be something that's of mantle height, but you don't want to mantle it, you want to wall jump on it. And this just gives you more control over your movement if you keep automatic airborne mantle off. You can still run partial or on, but as I make more movement tutorials, which I will be doing on this channel, so subscribe to stay tuned for those, you'll see what I mean later with some of the wall jumps, and it's worth getting used to having this setting off. Scrolling down to the remainder of the movement settings here, I go into movement advanced and put single tap run. This is another thing that doesn't really matter if you're not tactical sprinting, but just in case I have that setting on, I use single tap run. And that's going to do it for the controller movement settings in the combat. There is a setting that I used to use in Black Ops 6 that is messing up the ability to use kill streaks in Black Ops 7. It's a weird glitch. I used to turn ping wheel delay off, and the reason that I did this was because I ping with my left paddle on my SCUF controller, and I didn't want to accidentally hold down that ping button and pull up that scroll wheel or the ping wheel. Only problem was there's a glitch, like I said, in Black Ops 7 that causes this to not allow you to use streaks for some reason. So make sure you don't have the setting off. If you followed one of my previous settings videos, make sure you have this one on moderate. Calling in streaks is still a little bit buggy right now, but it'll be a lot more consistent if you put that setting on moderate instead of off. And now the controller settings are out of the way, we're going to move on to graphics. You'll want to pretty much follow everything under the display tab. We'll get into some more subjective stuff later with quality, but for now you want to make sure you're playing on full screen exclusive. Match your display monitor, your adapter, your screen refresh rate, and your aspect ratio. Make sure all that matches the monitor that you're expecting to be using. A lot of people ask on gamma and brightness. This is personal preference. It also depends on your monitor, which you can't see right now. But as a general rule of thumb, I keep this at about 50. For NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency, my understanding of this setting is that on plus boost is if your graphics card is better than your CPU, and on is if your CPU is better than your graphics card. So for me, I have a 5080 in this PC. I want to keep this on plus boost. I have VSync turned off. Custom frame limit, I have this on custom with a custom frame rate limit as 250 in game. You could also run unlimited, but I think you're supposed to do custom and then do a frame limit that's a little bit higher than your monitor's refresh rate. And I have my HDR turned off. Those are the majority of the important settings in display. Going over to quality, Like I said, here's where we'll get a little bit subjective. On upscaling and sharpening on PC, I do fidelity cast with a strength of 100. We'll talk about this a little bit later in console as well, so stay tuned if you're on PS5 for that setting. For the VRAM scale target, I run 80 with variable rate shading on. The remainder of those settings are as follows. Pretty much everything from details and textures and below is going to be on very low or low. So texture resolution very low, texture filter low, depth of field off, detail quality low, particle resolution very low, bullet impacts and persistent effects are both off. Shader quality low, on-demand texture streaming, make sure this is on minimal. Local texture streaming quality and in-game video quality are going to both be low. Shadow quality, we're doing very low. The remainder of the settings are going to be off, 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 and then low. And then environment, we're doing terrain quality low, volumetric quality low, deferred physics off, weather grid off, and water quality off. That's the remainder of the quality settings there, and we're really emphasizing minimal strain on your PC as possible so we can prioritize frame rate. Let me apply the one that I changed there, and then for view, I rock 105 for FOV. There are pro players much better than I am that run anywhere from 97 to 98. Not too many people go higher than 107 though. So make sure, especially if you play on a controller, you don't go much higher than 107. I think 105 is a solid middle ground to still have a ton of peripheral vision, but not lose out on aim assist. So ADS field of view, make sure you have this on affected. Weapon field of view, have this on wide. That way you can see more of the screen in front of you. Your gun is not obstructing your view as much with wide, so change that setting. Make sure your world and weapon motion blur are both off and your first and third person camera movements are at 50%. And that is the remainder of the view settings. Yeah, that's everything for graphics there. Let's move on to audio. There are some important settings here. I have master gain volume at 100 with the music volume down. I don't mess with the enhanced headphone mode. It doesn't necessarily sound better to me, but what I do change, I go to audio mix to headphone bass boost. I scroll down to asymmetrical hearing composition. I turn this on, and under configure frequency intensity, I've done this in Black Ops 6 and it made footsteps a little bit easier to hear. On the left channel frequency, these are the ones that I changed. Make sure that you're not wearing your headset as you change these because it makes a very loud ringing sound. So to literally remove the headphones from my ears as I change these settings and then go from there. You want to make sure that the left channel and the right channel match each other as well. In the remainder of the audio settings, I turn reduce tinnitus sound on and then hit marker preset as classic. For the voice chat, I'll scroll through these. Anyways, I don't believe I make any changes to this tab though. And with audio done, up next is going to be interface. I leave these settings on default for global. The changes that I make are under readability. You want to scroll down to color customization here. I go down to color filter, do filter 2. Color filter target is both with the world color intensity at 80 and the interface color intensity at 100. This has always been a good setting to make your game look more vibrant, so that's what I use there. And going back to the interface settings, now we go to gameplay HUD. For multiplayer HUD presets, I've landed on something that I'm pretty confident with for the Black Ops 7 HUD as of right now. Right now, my HUD interface is standard. I'm not sure if I'm still waiting to unlock more of these. Ideally, I would have like a magnified, but unless you unlock this later, I'm gonna have to stick with standard for now. I don't change the scale, but I do go down to the, let's see, HUD widget visibility. I open this and I turn the compass off. That way that giant compass in the top middle of the screen is not really obstructing the view. Kind of feels in the way for me, so that's why I turn that off. Now I go to HUD bounds as well, and I move this as close to the center of my screen, both horizontally and vertically as it can go. This pushes the minimap closer to the center of your screen. That way you can see it easier as you're going through the game. Scrolling down the remainder of the gameplay HUD settings, these are huge. Make sure that your crosshair lines are both on static. I leave the crosshair line spread on, and then the dot scale as default. You could do larger or largest. That's really personal preference as well. I go crosshair color. The current one that I use is right there under the hex number. Make sure that your saturation and brightness is turned all the way up before you apply it as well. And then hit marker visuals, damage-based hit markers are both on. And I don't change anything in the motion reduction settings. And the very last setting that you're going to want to make sure that you change is under here in account and network. Go down to, let's see, dismemberment and gore effects and turn that off. This is a setting that will help with not dropping as many frames when there's those like high intense, like tracer pack explosion type of things. This just helps a little bit, especially on consoles, so make sure that you have that setting off. And that is it for the PC settings for Black Ops 7. Let's go to console. And before we even get into the Black Ops 7 console settings, you want to make sure that your PS5 settings match these ones. The important ones are going to the PS5 settings, then accessibility, go to controllers, make sure that haptic feedback during console navigation is turned on. I'll hide my camera so you can see that setting should be turned on. Up next, you want to go to system and make sure under HDMI that enable HDCP is turned off. Then scroll down to screen and video. You want to make sure that your video output signal matches what you're wanting to use. This says 60 hertz right now, but that's not what I play at. I do play at 4K though. Make sure that your 120 hertz output is on automatic. If you're able to turn ALLM on, you should. My monitor does not support it though. HDR, I have this turned off, and then RGB range, I have this on full. You also want to go down to accessories in the main console settings, scroll down to controller, and where it says communication method, you want to make sure that it says USB cable for communication method. Make sure this is on USB cable and not Bluetooth. Also under save data and app settings, scroll down to game presets, and then under performance mode or resolution mode, make sure this is on performance mode. And that's the final console setting. We can actually go into Call of Duty now. Everything will remain the same from a controller standpoint, but we'll go into the console graphics. Make sure, of course, your 120 hertz refresh rate is on. Eco mode preset is off. Under quality, this is what my settings look like here. If you find yourself losing some frames, you can turn your fidelity cut strength down. I play on 4K, so it's pretty intense some of the times, and I'll play with this at like 30 just to make sure I don't lose as many frames. But so far, Black Ops 7 seems pretty well optimized, so I'll keep this up at 100 for the time being. And for view, these are the same as well. 105, wide, 50 and 50. And there you have it. Those are all my settings for Black Ops 7. Let me know if this video helped you out. Like and subscribe if you enjoy, and I'll catch you next time at lunchtime.